thing with the college admissions scandals and like the cheating and stuff.
Oh, really? What is that? What is it? Where was it? And what's it called?
So there were uh, some celebrities and others that were recently kind of found out to be like cheating and trying to get their kids into like Ivy League and just general more expensive good schools. Um, and they kind of like laundered their way in rather than having their kids actually earn their way in.
Hmm. Wow.
Wait a minute. So so these celebrities, they fudged all their grades and got into really good schools.
Yeah, and they also bribed like coaches and such on sports teams to be like, hey, uh, if we'll give you this money and our kid is doing this whatever sport, um, and then they can get in on a scholarship and stuff into the colleges.
So
I don't
basically,
know.
it's like. Go ahead.
I mean, I would think just pulling an Elizabeth Warren would be the easier option. Oh, I'm 1/16th Cherokee.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah. I think it goes. I think it goes by like a lot of class too. Like, oh well, we have these connections. I mean, I don't. I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of corrupt things that can go on though. So like, I'm not really shocked. Where was this in? Like, what state? Or is this just across multiple states?
Um, Across multiple states.
Oh wow. Is it? Was
Um,
it state universities or was it private schools?
some were private. Most of them were Ivy League. So yeah,
Wow. So basically, it was just corrupt people doing what corrupt people do, just taking money and asking questions later.
yeah,
Wow,
basically,
that's that sucks. That's actually really
yeah,
stupid.
yeah,
One of the things I've wanted to touch on for a while, but I don't have enough like knowledge on it to really talk about it in detail, is like chemtrails.
yeah,
Um,
Mm-hmm.
it, I'm, I mean, I can already tell a lot of people don't know everything about chemtrails. There's a select group of people who I can think
yeah,
of, and I snap my fingers, who know. And most of them are talk show hosts, such as Clyde Lewis. A little bit of Alex Jones, not really, not really. Clyde Lewis
yeah,
more so because he actually wrote an entire book on this. And he's actually done a lot of personal research himself and done a lot of interviews with people who actually went out in the field and actually, like, I mean, Air Force, people in the Air Force have come on his show to talk about it. Um, I'd have to play clips from his show because I listen to him almost every night. So I mean, he's guy's way above anything I could ever do in terms of research on that. So I don't really have any means to talk about it. But if I do, we'll probably if I do get some more information on it, I'll probably end up buying his book, and we'll probably have a discussion on it. Maybe once I get a little more information.
yeah. Because that's definitely something that I find interesting, also, but I absolutely don't have a lot of information on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something worth discussing, at least for maybe
Yeah,
goodness, probably for a good hour. I mean, we could just discuss that.
Well, I don't know if I could because I don't know a whole lot about chemtrails anymore. I mean, I remember studying them for a while, um, but
But then you got into the
you know,
flat
I
Earth,
don't
and then
know.
you just
Probably,
went, oh, from there. You're just like, all right.
yeah, took the I took a second red pill and my attention went off of chemtrails for a while. So, you know.
You woke up from the Matrix. You realize this entire Earth is flat.
Oh, speaking of books,
Yeah.
I actually started writing one.
Oh, nice. Oh wow, was it about?
It's called the PaleoCon Manifesto. It's about the difference between neoconservatism and traditional conservatism. I already finished a whole chapter, and it's like over 4,200 words.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nice.
You thinking about selling it?
Yeah, I mean,
Nice.
I know it's highly unlikely these days to get rich off of becoming an author, but I'm
It's
planning. I'm
yeah.
thinking of entering politics one day, and a politician always looks that much smarter if he's written a book.
That's true.
I can't
It's not
express
as fun.
how true that is.
Yeah.
That's stupid true.
Usually only if there's not a ton of stuff to bash on, though.
Yeah.
There are some politicians that have written books or at least gone on shows and said things where it's definitely come back to haunt them later on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, take a look at Alex Jones. He got completely removed off media
Oh, I know.
because of
Yeah.
something he said that was. I mean, at the time, was he making it seem like it was fact? Well, yeah, because that's what the conspiracy
Yeah.
theory entailed. He was explaining it. At the
It was
same
it
time,
was the
yeah,
Sandy Hook thing, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
we talked about this in the
Yeah.
last one. He uh, allegedly, I don't know all the facts, but I guess he just got removed because he was throwing out false uh,
He was well, according to what the judge ruled, he was slandering.
slandering and hate speech. I do believe is what he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he had to pay reparations to all of the quote unquote families he devastated.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I mean, listen. If he went out and he said if he started calling for these families to be like hurt and stuff like that, I mean, okay, yeah,
That would make
I
sense
could
because he's
see.
like actually threatening people. But
Right,
no, he's
but
just saying. All he's saying is that these people weren't telling the truth, and he was presenting evidence to suggest that they weren't telling the truth.
right, which
Right.
But to all of these, like basically what's being said by the media was that he was slandering these people by saying that they were lying.
hmm
Yes.
which in a sense, yeah,
I mean,
but in another sense, absolutely not.
I
He's
mean the way
expressing
that
his
I
opinion. He's not saying
Yeah,
his opinion's
yeah,
fact.
that's true.
like it would be a different thing if he was saying something like, "Oh, this corporation is selling poison in their Adderall or something,"
Right.
it, like that. That would be
Yeah,
slander
because he's trying. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that could actually hurt the corporation.
Exactly. Right. These people who he's saying are quote unquote lying, and he says himself that he never said. I honestly, I'm not going to go try to go back into his web of videos to try and find that video where he says anything saying that they're lying entirely, or I'm not going to go back and try to find where he said that they're not lying. I'm not going to go and try to find that because people can try to find that for themselves, and I don't want to get copyright for that. I'm not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
go ahead.
one thing I'm kind of like just generally thinking though is that I mean it was a little bit ridiculous that they like called him on that.
Right,
Although it was,
it's almost like they're
although it was,
nitpicking because he said that years and years and years ago.
Oh, I know. That was probably
yeah,
back in 2012 when he first started mentioning that. Like I remember in 2012, I was in sixth grade, sixth or seventh grade back then. Um, like even my dad, I like the first time that I was exposed to just how sketchy this whole thing about Sandy Hook was. My dad had a YouTube video on, and it was this guy just like pointing to all the things that were just kind of weird about the whole Sandy Hook shooting,
Mm-hmm.
like how there was no like it was the timing for how all the police and the paramedics arrived. That was off,
Yeah.
and the fact that almost none of the children who went to the school were very familiar with any of the casualties from the shooting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And apparently some of the kids who died, well, were reported dead anyway. Doesn't mean they died. Um, they were reported deceased. They were, I guess, at a Super Bowl, and they were singing the national anthem at the
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl. And I guess that's what really started to spike people's interest in this, and that's how it got popular. And that's part of the reason why Alex Jones started saying what he was saying. I don't know all the details. All I know is that they were picking and prodding at him because they didn't like him, because people were believing what he was saying. Whether it's true or not, they believed it. So they got the not necessarily the government, but the media in and of itself as a whole, meaning Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of them, the major corporations, the guys who make the big bucks. It doesn't matter who it is. They didn't like what he was saying. They cut him out.
Mm-hmm.
In the end of the day, you say anything, you get cut out. We could say something in this right now. My whole channel on YouTube could get shut down. My channel on iTunes could get shut down. You know, my channel on podcasts could be shut down. It all could get
Yeah.
shut down because I said something that nobody liked. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
And in my opinion, in a First Amendment country where we can say whatever we want, we can express the opinions we want. I don't think that should be a thing. Whereas, and then they could say, oh well, this is our private areas now. This is the internet. This is our private thing. Well, nothing's saying I can't go out and start my own website. Because, I mean, his website's still up. I mean, you can still go to his website and look him up and stuff like that. You just can't download him, like, off iTunes, or you can't go watch him on YouTube anymore.
Right.
That's it.
yeah.
Well,
Other than
then
that,
there's also the problem of hosting. Like, I don't know if you're aware, but in 2017, Stormfront actually went down for a few months.
really,
Yeah, because of hate speech, because of the domain. The domain didn't want to continue having them on there. And Stormfront obviously is like one of the oldest websites on like the World Wide Web. Like I think it was started in like 1997, and so it's pretty huge.
what's it
I
called?
mean,
Storefront?
of course, Stormfront, yeah. Um, but of course, the
It's
I
a
don't know what
white
happened.
nationalist community.
Yeah,
No wonder it was
Oh,
taken down.
goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that, like, I mean, yeah, if they want
yeah.
to.
I don't endorse what they're saying, but the point I'm trying to make is that
Right.
um, if one of those hosting websites doesn't want to host you, they can take down your website.
Huh.
Like obviously they'll pay you back for like however much you were paying them every month or every year or whatnot. Um, but they can turn you off if you want.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of just background uh, controlling of free speech, and it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely not fair. But the people behind it, I mean, we can't really say who they are because we
No,
don't
we don't know.
fully know, and so it's yeah,
I mean, I guess that's why the deep web is getting so popular these
Mm-hmm.
days. It's
Because,
because everybody's going there because there is absolutely no restrictions on
yeah,
speech there, which can actually be for the worse in the case of the deep web because uh, you go on the hidden wiki, and when you're looking at the hidden wiki, you're actually just seeing the censored version. You go to the uncensored version, you really don't want to go there because
yeah,
you're gonna see some shit there that you do not want to see.
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some videos on YouTube about that. It's just like, oh, wow, the nightmares this would cause. It's just like, jeez. Yeah.
I
I'm
have
all
been
good.
tempted to go on there
I,
before, like
I have been too, but here's the thing.
just because of my curiosity.
Here's why I haven't. For starters, okay? I've heard some horror stories where people, like politicians, will get arrested on child porn charges, okay? Now, Not saying these politicians weren't guilty of it, but think of it this way. Politicians, there's been multiple politicians who have been known to go on the deep web, and not just for that reason. They could go on there to get information. Journalists have been arrested for this. Okay, for quote child porn. But think of it this way: let's say you're on the deep web, and all of a sudden a bunch of files of this child pornography get downloaded on your computer. You have no way of stopping it, and the next thing you know, a few days later, you're trying to delete it off your computer. Next thing you know, FBI is knocking at your door, and you're getting swatted, essentially.
Yeah, people make it into a meme about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see something on the internet that's like child porn, and then the FBI is just like breaking into your house with,
right.
with fully automatic weapons. But that's the reality of it. If you actually get exposed to that kind of stuff, and a file makes it onto your computer, which you can't stop because it's a virus. Like the deep web is swarming with viruses.
Right, you have no
every single website you go on.
Yeah.
That can actually happen, and people have gotten arrested because of it.
Yep. And I mean, hell, I've sat. I've watched countless videos on people who have been trying to talk about the deep web and how free and open it is, but at the same time how dangerous and awful it can be. And I'm saying to myself, I don't think it's worth the risk. I really don't. No matter, the only way I would do it is if I had the means to, from a professional, like somebody like a government agent or something like that, some kind of federal official who is basically that's their job is to do that. I wouldn't trust anyone else.
Just to make sure, like if anything did happen by some chance,
right,
measures could be taken to make sure nothing too bad happened.
Right, or even that, it's all taken care of. Like, there's people in the military who know their way around that stuff. So people in the military that's their job is to go on there. The FBI, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those that's their job is to go on there. That's the kind of people I would trust to do it. Professionals who always do it. Other than that, I wouldn't be doing it. Personally, no, I wouldn't do it. That goes back to so much stuff though. When you talk about people getting taken down for let's go ahead and channel it back to people getting taken down again. Like when the internet is almost accepted as like a public space now, right? It's public.
Yeah.
Everyone can use it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a public space. It's not private anymore. Used to be back a long time ago. Government used to own it. Not so much anymore. Can they regulate it just like they can regulate public roadways and public owned land that's paid with taxes? Yeah, they can regulate it. But they can't take one person off the internet forever. If that person wants to find a way to get back on the internet, they will. Unless they take the internet down, which is very probable they can do that.
That's what they did in South Park.
Yeah, it's a possibility, but
they blew up SpaceX and deleted the internet.
Yep.
To be honest with you, I don't even think the internet is one of those things that you can just delete.
No, because you would have to delete it on like every computer in the world.
Yeah, I don't even think that's possible.
No.
No, because you can just keep downloading it onto the computer. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. So.
How about we just choose a topic, start talking about it, and then just see what other topics arise out of it?
Okay.
Like, where do we start? Of course, I want to do an introduction for this before we start. When we start recording, I want to do an introduction.
Oh, believe it or not,
talk about whatever.
Believe it or not, I just recorded pretty much everything we just talked about right there. So that can
really?
Yeah, that can be a part of it. So I feel like that was decent. Oh shit.
Yeah.
For a start, that was okay. I'm not I'm not upset with what we just did. I'm pretty impressed with it actually.
Well, let's try to come up with a topic that we can like actively disagree about.
Okay.
You know, because I
Yeah,
don't
I
want
know,
this to
cause
be some big
Yeah.
circle jerk.
right.
I mean, I
I know.
definitely have a more liberal leaning opinion on most things. So if you have something that is and like strong on any of the sides, it'll probably do well.
All right, so I don't know, Josh. Have we talked about the Vegas shooting? Me and you.
Yes,
Have we talked about it? I can't remember.
definitely. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Never mind. I was about to say. No. Yeah. So we talked about that shit. I don't know if we disagreed with that or not. I don't know. I know one thing we did
No,
disagree. Yeah, I was gonna say we agree
we
with
yeah,
guns. We
we
always
agree
end
on
up
most
agreeing.
things.
Yeah, we agree
Yeah.
on most gun things. Do you?
Although I do tend to lean a little bit more towards the liberal a bit more often, I'm definitely very close to being in the middle.
Mm,
I seek truth, not
Centrist
to be
scum.
on a side.
right. I mean, it's one of those things where you get to pick and choose. You don't have to stay. You know, that's one of the beauties of this country is you don't have to go one extreme to the other. You can just go,
Yeah,
well, you know what? I really don't like this, but I agree with this too a little bit. You know, and then you can express your opinion. That's the beauty of this show is that you can come on. I mean, we'll probably have Logan. We'll probably have Logan on too. If we can get all four of us on, that'd be great. Um, but I mean, that's the point of this is I want us to I eventually I mean yeah somewhere along the podcast will we be just kind of bouncing off opinions everywhere everyone's kind of agreeing and then someone brings up something and then someone's like whoa I disagree with that entirely. That's something where I'm like good we need that. um,
yeah,
because one of the first things we got in a disagreement with was that I do believe I said being transgendered was a. I didn't say it like it was
uh,
100% factual, but I said I believe it is. I believed it
yeah,
was a mental illness. Now,
yeah,
I'm not saying it's a mental illness because they're transgendered. What I meant by that was that if they don't have a chemical imbalance in their body, then that's kind of like a personality disorder. You know what I mean?
yeah. The
That's
thing with
that's what I was trying to
like
bounce off of with that.
yeah, the thing with being like transgender and such is that it itself is not a bad thing. It's not a like there's nothing wrong with it,
No.
but it does have its side effects, which could definitely lead to mental illness and
Mm-hmm.
cases where it isn't uh, accepted or
Right.
other things
Yeah.
or dealt with in some way.
Right. Mm-hmm. Um, and I talked about my uncle, who is, I mean, technically he's transgendered, but not really. He grew breasts, but he is a man. In terms of LGBT, he identifies as gay. But he identifies as a male, not a female, even though he grew breasts.
Yeah,
Um, that was his choice. He didn't want to be a girl. I guess he just wanted to be a guy. That was his choice. Now,
yeah,
of course, in terms of private parts, he was gifted with a male end. So, in terms of oh, what the in terms of in terms
is
of
there a sound going through like a buzzing or
initially
something?
for a second there was not anymore.
All right, because I'm pretty sure that's my phone.
Oh, that's fine. If you need
Uh,
to take it for a second, that's fine. Just go ahead and mute yourself.
no, it's just normal.
Oh, okay.
Um, this yeah,
All right.
I'll turn that off.
Oh, shit. What was I saying? Oh yeah. But yeah, he was given male genitalia at birth, so biologically he is a man. If he wants to identify as a female, I mean, I guess that's a thing. I don't agree with it. I think that if you're biologically born as a male, you are a male. You can
Yeah.
think you're a
Oh,
female, but at the same time, that is again, if there is no chemical imbalance, you are mentally there is some kind of mental illness there. I'm not saying it's bad.
or
Okay, everybody has mental
yeah.
illness. You know,
And it doesn't have to be like a textbook mental illness. It could just be there's some kind of mental. There's nothing. There's something. Everything might not be on the same wavelength. It sounds bad, but it's not meant in a bad way.
right, right. I mean, mental illness. I mean, everybody has it. So
That's true at one point or another.
yeah. some, but
No, well,
some
the
people.
thing is,
Oh,
I just don't think if you have a disorder, it should be embraced. Like,
right.
getting a sex change operation because you have gender dysphoria is basically like uh, curing your depression by committing suicide.
I get your
Yeah,
point. I get your point. I see what you mean. But I disagree with that because, well, here's the thing. Okay, it all goes by perspective. Everybody has a different perspective. Well, oh, I'm
yeah,
super depressed. Now, depending on what made them depressed, in the terms of a soldier with PTSD, he's depressed because he's seen so many people die, or something happened that was so traumatizing that he doesn't feel the need to get up every morning. He wants to just not want to do anything. He's in a very dark spot in his life, or her life too. It don't matter.
yeah.
And it was so traumatizing to the point where they don't want to get up out of bed every morning. They don't do anything.
And the one thing that's kind of difficult when it comes to perspective is that, I mean, when it comes down to it, reality is perspective.
Yep.
We become what we think we are. If we think we're awesome, I mean, you may be completely dead wrong, but um, you can't be what you can't accept yourself as. And so when it comes to like being male or not, it's just, yeah,
Uh, is Brandon muted right now?
I was for a second. Sorry
uh,
about that.
oh,
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anyways, as we were saying, sorry about that. I should have warned you guys that I was gonna have to be right back for a second. My bad.
that's all right.
So what were you saying?
He was
The
saying
diff-
you can't be what you don't accept yourself to be. If you're a male but you can't accept the fact that you're a male, you're gonna act kind of faggy.
Right. You're
uh,
gonna act more as like a female. You're gonna act more feminine.
Yes, that's what
Right.
I mean.
Okay. Right.
or just non-masculine.
Right. Right. I get you.
More androgynous.
There you go. Right. No, I get that. I mean, this is a topic I don't really. It's a yeah. It's a touchy subject for me because I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm a straight white guy. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, you don't have the right. And plus, worse, I'm blonde haired and blue eyed. So in the mainstream, people are like, oh, you don't have an opinion. You don't have the right to an opinion. You're a racist. I
Did
mean,
you ever
that's
you
what
ever
I've
see
heard.
that did you ever see that video of that guy in the UK Parliament or something? He was like, I think we can all agree that if we're talking about women's issues, men should be quiet. If we're talking about race issues, white people should be quiet. And if we're talking about Scottish independence, English should be quiet.
Yeah.
I
Here's my
mean,
I
thing.
don't agree with that.
That's
I
like
mean, I
trying to
think,
say if we're gonna talk about a dog's independence, humans should be quiet.
it, yeah,
right.
there's definitely, I can't fully agree with what he said because when it comes down to it, every opinion matters.
Exactly.
Everything that has to be said should be taken into account, whether that's more or less than someone else's.
I don't
So, like,
think we should play identity politics. Like, your opinion does not become invalid because of your race or your gender or
Right.
ethnicity.
Right. Because in a sense, that's embracing what humans are. I mean, that's like disengaging from what humans are. Right. You're you're in like you're embracing the fact that we're separated. Like you're not accepting the fact that we're all one race, which is the human race. Now, do we all have different colors of skin? Yeah, that's nothing but an adaptation based on where we live. Has
True,
has
but
nothing to
when it
do with
comes,
what? Go ahead.
but when it comes to like things, especially with implicit bias and such, it doesn't matter how much we know the truth. If the truth is not ingrained in our heads, we're going to carry out what we know. And what we know, I mean, in America for a decent amount, is unfairness of some kind, racism, uh, racial injustice, just different stuff where it's like, hmm,
Yeah, I see what you're talking
sorry
about.
about
I don't explain.
sorry about that. Sometimes I'll blank out. Um, so um, it although we know that when it comes down to it, it's not about if someone else is white, if someone else is black, if someone else is this, if someone else is that. Um, we have a system where racism is a thing, unfairness is a thing. I mean, that's just being human. Um, but it takes time to have that truth not necessarily become truth, but become the primary thought. Because when it comes down to it, I was born in the South. And when I am shown this person or that person, I'm going to have an immediate thought. It doesn't matter who the person is. My immediate thing is, oh, I was taught to judge. I was taught to take someone by their image, how they talk, anything, and come up with something so I can define them and so I can make it easier to know how I'm supposed to
Make a
do my
judgment
job.
call.
Yeah.
Yep.
So know how I can talk to them, what I can say, what I can't say.
Hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Now, granted, Josh has been Josh is more experienced than me down south, so apparently there's a lot more racism down south.
Oh, there's plenty.
Now, now I don't disagree, but at the same token, I do agree about this. If you embrace the fact that a person who is of African American descent, okay, they are African American, and you take a Caucasian male, and both of them are males, they're both the same age, whatever have you, they both work the same job, stuff like that. If you tell me that Joe, who happens to be African American, is different than Bob, who happens to be uh, Caucasian, if you tell me they're different because of their skin color, that's wrong, in my opinion.
What's
I don't
wrong with that?
I don't. No, no, no. Meaning, I don't think it's like a wrong thing. I think that's like incorrect. Like, they're not different because of that. That doesn't make them different people. What makes them different people is their personalities, their spirit, their spirit. And that's my belief. Um,
Yeah.
Right.
their upbringing, where they lived. Now, of course, Joe might have lived a more, depending on where he was grown up. Okay, if he lived up north, he probably had a better upbringing than if he was down south. Now, this is all by statistics, and this is all by, oh well, assumption. Okay,
Yeah.
you can't say
That,
that
yeah.
somebody who's of a darker skin tone is going to get it worse down south. I mean, that's not. It's just false. It's not necessarily true. But if you go by, oh well, let's go by. Well, let's see a white guy down south. He's outnumbered. Now I know this because my friend Jordan, he went down to Florida, and I guess he said that he felt like he fit in more up north than he did down south because he
So
moved down
here's
to Florida, Now, of course,
Yeah, here's
he's of a darker skin tone. He's African American.
But why
Now,
did he feel better down in Florida?
he didn't feel better
Because
down
I
in
mean,
Florida. He felt worse. He felt more
oh
accepted
yeah,
up north than he did down south.
the
okay,
thing with
that makes sense because despite the fact that Florida is far blacker than Maine, and uh, you
Well,
know
there's more. There's
he's not
more.
going to feel better down there just because he's also black or at least half black.
Right.
It's
There's
going
more
to be
diversity in terms of culture down
it's
in
his
Florida.
upbringing, it's his main
yeah,
heritage that has made him the way he is.
Right. That's
yeah,
why I'm
and
saying. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
one thing that it is good to mention about like the South is it's very much painted as a um people are against whites or they're against blacks or stuff like that. Um, but it's very much just a place of inner turmoil. Nobody's okay with anybody when it comes down to it. Everybody's, well, I mean, and that's also a very large generalization. But in
Well, what do you
places
mean
that
by
I
like
was,
everybody's against everybody down there?
there's very much a lot of like there's either places, I mean, there's three kinds of places, at least that I see. There's like the places where there's less conflict of sorts, and then there's places where there's, uh, well, never, that's not a good, there's, depending on where you are, people will handle conflict and situations um, differently.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're in the suburbs and such, people are quite passive aggressive whether they mean to be or not. Um, it's quite consistent. Um, and they're just not as keen to show direct conflict because then that's like, oh, this isn't socially acceptable. This isn't following manners. This isn't etiquette. I'm not supposed to do this, so I'm not going to. And then
But
there's
they're still
other,
passive aggressive, you're saying.
yes. And then there's other places where it's like, oh, conflict. I can embrace conflict. I will go straight forward into conflict. I have no problem with conflict.
And
Um,
where do those places tend to be?
those tend to be in lower income or just, yeah, places where things are tougher, more taxing on the
So
mind without help.
I'm not trying to be a dick. Basically, you're talking about the ghetto.
I didn't hear that. You,
Yeah, you're cut out.
Oh, so I'm not trying to be a dick, but basically, you're talking about the ghetto. Lower income, not
Yes,
so more gang violence.
just generally not the best area for
And
anybody.
I'm not just saying this like so that way people don't think I'm trying to be freaking an asshole here. I'm not.
Bigoted or
I'm not trying to be like
yeah.
yeah, leave the
I'm not.
bigotry to me.
I'm not. I'm not trying to generalize or try to zone out just gangs. I mean, biker gangs. It doesn't matter. Biker gangs, meth
Yeah.
dealers, potheads, don't matter. They're all criminals. Not necessarily potheads, not so much anymore. But I mean, meth dealers, heroin dealers, they're all criminals. Gang violence is a big thing down south. It used to be a long time ago too. There's a lot of biker gang shootouts. Jeez, I'm a crow. I know there's a lot in Texas, I do believe, but now I was born in Georgia. Now, granted, I only spent a year of my life there, so I don't know a whole lot of anything about Georgia. But I do know that there is a vast diversity of cultures down there,
Yes.
much
Very true.
more than Maine.
Like,
Much more
Um.
than Maine.
Okay.
like,
So, all right. So we're talking like almost any religion you can think, and we're not talking like one or two. We're talking about like neighborhoods, full neighborhoods, full houses, apartment complexes, and stuff like that. You can find like people that are African American from Japan.
Hmm.
You can find people that are white from Africa.
Yep.
Um, and it's very, very. everything is mixed.
And I mean, goodness, man. I mean,
Furthest south
races.
I've ever been is Virginia. I had a chance to go to Kentucky once, but my dad didn't want me to specifically because of the gang violence.
Yep, Kentucky's pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, Kentucky's definitely been getting better over the years, but it was definitely
Louisiana's
not the
pretty bad
best
too.
place. Yeah,
Well,
um,
Louisiana's.
certain
Louisiana is
parts.
like one of the. It's considered to be like at least New Orleans, the New Orleans area. It's like considered to be the most evil city in America.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of definitely a lot of like voodoo, Santeria, black magic. It's
I'm gonna
quite
be
a
honest
plot.
with you. If I ever have to go out of state, I'm going to get. I mean, I don't think I could ever go out of state without some type of firearm on my person. I gotta be honest with you. The safety standards, I just don't want
Yeah,
to risk it. I mean, I'm not saying that oh, you got to be on alert all the time, but like, it's good to be armed. I mean, especially in today's society, because
rough because
I hate to say it,
oh yeah, you go.
that's the mentality. Rather have it and not need it. It's good to be
Yeah,
prepared and then excellent to not need it than to
yes,
really wish you have it
yeah,
and then oh shit, I don't have it. So
yeah,
Hmm.
that's my philosophy on that. I would rather have it, not really need it, than need it and not have it.
Yeah, that's why I'm planning to. Like, I don't know if I told you this already, but I'm planning to go to Liberty University. When I get done in the military. Of course, if the Department of Defense actually gets back to me and gives me my waiver, um, but I am planning to go down there. But I'm thinking of driving there,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I can bring a firearm with me if I need it. I don't think I'll actually need to use it.
Nah,
I hope I don't
you
need to
won't.
use it, but that's
Chances of
down south.
right.
My my parents and my parents' friends, they were warning me, it's not like Maine down there.
Nope,
yeah.
it's not.
I do have to say, having been around most of places in this country, it's there are fewer places than you'd think that you would need a firearm or some kind of protection thing on your person,
Protection
but
thing.
there are um, uh, yeah, whether that be mace or whatever.
Right.
Um, but
Taser.
there are fewer places than you'd think that you'd need one, but there are definitely more places that you'll need one.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I hate to say it. Sometimes all you gotta do is brandish it, and someone's like, "Okay, we're done here."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I
so
mean, in certain areas.
right, right. If there's like a gang up here
Uh,
in Maine, all you gotta do is brandish your firearm, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, well,
yeah,
we're
if
done."
yeah, if
Most
you
most of the
pull
time.
some kind of yeah, if you pull some kind of stuff like that in like the deep south, there's a decent chance like
You're gonna have four other
you
guys
better
who pull
you
them on
better
you.
be yeah, you better be in and out of that area because if anybody knows you're still there, not good.
Right. I hate to say it. For me personally, if I ever had to take out I wouldn't just brandish it. I'm sorry. If I ever had to take out my firearm or present it in any form of way, that'd be a last resort. I mean, I would have no other choice. If I'm getting a bad
Hmm.
feeling and I have four guys coming around me, hate to say it, I'm not gonna take any chances. You
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know,
mean,
I know it
in
sounds
that
kind of dickish, but I mean, I think George Zimmerman waited a little bit too long to get out his firearm. I mean, when your head is getting smashed repeatedly on a sidewalk
wait,
and like
what?
uh,
what, you don't know about that?
I
I
don't
mean,
remember
I
this.
George Zimmerman, this was like geez, like 7 years ago probably, maybe more. George Zimmerman, he's this Hispanic guy. Um, he's a neighborhood watch guy.
Oh wow.
He's looking around. He sees this black guy out past curfew, whatever
He
they
was a
have.
teenager.
Yeah,
Oh,
Trayvon
oh,
Martin,
oh,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I know this now. I know this now. Trayvon
Yeah.
Martin. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
God,
and he
yeah, I remember
said
this.
George goes up to him and he's like, "What are you doing out here so late?" Uh, he does his typical, "Oh, didn't do nothing" stuff, and uh, I don't know how exactly it came to that point, but Trayvon like tackled him, started smashing his head on the sidewalk, and that's when George actually got out his pistol and shot the kid.
Yeah, and I
Well,
mean,
I mean, here's the thing. When somebody charges you, you have seconds, not minutes. You have seconds to draw your firearm, take the safety off, chamber it, then fire. If your firearm is not already chambered, well, I mean, I hate to say it, whoever's charging you is gonna win. Unless you're a speed loader and you know
yeah,
how to, and you know your weapon top to, which if you're gonna carry it, you should know your weapon top to bottom anyway, and you know the ins and outs of your weapon, which you should. Um, you should be able to chamber it within 2 seconds. One,
Yeah,
two,
I mean
one.
it
Take
was
it out.
pretty
One,
lucky.
two. Load it. Safety off. Max, it should take you to draw your pistol and aim it at somebody is 3 seconds. Now, let me count. 1, 2, 3. How fast do you think somebody can run in 3 seconds? Believe it or not, the
Well, I
distance is
mean,
pretty high.
yeah,
mm-hmm.
Okay, depending on how. I mean, they were in speaking distance because he was able to at least get his attention, and I could assume he closed in the distance just to try and get a picture of his face and stuff like that. So while he was closing in the distance, he could have at least started to slowly put his hand on his firearm, try to figure out what's going on.
yeah.
Not
I
necessarily like,
mean,
well, put his hand near it, not on it, because you never want to do that, because then that just escalates shit. But you just want to put your hand near it, and then just continue talking to whoever. It's a precaution. It's not. Police do this, except I've seen some police officers just straight up just rest their hand on their gun. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You're asking for an
yeah.
escalation. Now,
Um,
granted, most police officers they know this and they do it on purpose to scare the individual. Um,
yeah,
it's called an intimidation tactic, and it's to get somebody to do what they want. Which, if you watch any videos of somebody bashing on police officers and telling them they're not doing their job right, I've always seen them do it. They always rest their hand on their firearms. Like, you don't got to do that, man. You know?
yeah. And one thing that definitely comes up a lot, especially even in that case, is that people know how to use stuff like firearms and other weapons or things like that, but they don't know how to de escalate a situation. They
Right.
don't know how to deal with the conflict itself without going to some kind of extreme.
Right.
And that is a very core problem.
We talked.
And
Oh,
that,
sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, I started over talking.
there you go.
Oh, yeah, as you were saying, they don't know how to de-escalate the situation. I mean, this doesn't just go with with the issue of George Zimmerman. This also goes with we did this in the last podcast. Hold on, let me see if I can grab the article. Um, we talked about how there was a police officer who entered a hotel with two other officers. They all had AR-15s. They were all locked and loaded, 30-round magazines. Okay. They were responding to a guy with a pistol or a sidearm or a firearm of some kind that is concealable inside of the hotel. Okay, so they're responding to this. Now, this is before the Vegas shooting. This is before all that. The officer, there's these two people who come around the corner. Now they look scared out of their minds. You wouldn't even believe how scared these poor people looked. The woman, she got on. They ordered her to get on her knees and crawl to them slowly. She did as they asked. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, when somebody is on their knees and they're crawling towards you, would you rather have somebody do that or would you rather have somebody put their hands in the air and slowly walk toward you while they're
Yeah,
presenting their hands, palms to you? I'm sorry, I
Uh,
would rather have them
yeah,
walk
that probably
toward
would make
me,
sense.
palms facing me, hands out, facing us, walking towards me and my guys. One of my guys will grab him, cuff him, pat him down. There we go. Simple as that. You know,
I mean, but depending on who it is and how they're built and stuff, if you,
they were
I don't know.
relatively small guys. Two small
Uh,
people. The guy was relatively. I'll have to. I can actually bring up the video. Hold on.
I mean, yeah, if they're not of a like worrying stature or build, I think you should just have them walk.
Now here's what I'm gonna.
Worst they can do is tackle.
Right. Yeah. Now here's what I'm gonna tell you though. Here's the stupid part. He ends up the guy who the male, the guy who the police officer ordered the male to get on the to get on his knees and crawl towards him. Now the female, she was fine. They let her crawl. She was fine. Of course. Now the guy, he's a nervous wreck. I mean, he's shaking like you wouldn't believe. He's sweating. I mean, you can just see it. He's shaky. His voice is shaky. His hands are shaking. He's crawling so slow you wouldn't even believe it. And they're yelling at him. And they say, "If you do not comply with my orders, I will shoot and kill you." He says this multiple times. And the guy gets it. He says, "Okay, I'm going to do as you say." Now I'm thinking to myself, is that how you de-escalate a situation and calm someone's nerves down? By telling them you will kill them if you
Yeah.
do not comply with their exact
No.
order? That's like borderline. If you don't like, that's like what a criminal would say to a bank associate if the bank guy wasn't taking money out of the vault quickly. If you don't get money out of the vault quickly, I'm gonna shoot and kill you. You know, I mean, like, and the way he was yelling at him, it was just like that's so like that's not how you de-escalate a situation. And I don't care how much adrenaline is running through you. Oh, I was in fear of my life. Listen, buddy, if you were in fear of your life, you shouldn't have signed up to be a police officer.
Yeah.
The moment you put on that badge, you are serving. You are no longer serving yourself. You are serving the people, not yourself anymore. If I was that's just like it's the same thing with the military, except the police are held to a lower standard. The military, they cannot shoot unless they are fired upon. Whereas a cop,
Yeah.
oh, you feel your life's in danger? Well, shoot. Shoot as you
Yeah.
feel discretion.
Yeah. There's definitely not a lot of rules.
That's why we
Mm.
need to militarize the police.
All
They'll
right.
be held to the same
That's
standards as
no.
the military.
Now,
They can be held to the same standards without being militarized.
right.
Militarized, at least for me, that has a government connotation. That's going to bring the whole firearm thing way up to the top, and it's not going to be good.
No, Josh, we need a police state.
I'll be honest with you. Yeah, okay. If you guys watch this video, I mean, it is just absolutely. I mean,
I've already seen it.
yeah, Josh. If you watch that video, you'll see what I mean when I say this officer was way out. You'll hear it right when you start the video. You'll hear it in his voice, the way he's yelling at them to stop. It's like that's that's not that's not how you de-escalate a situation. I'll give you a few minutes
Talkers
to watch
are,
it.
yeah. I mean,
One of them tries to say
immediately,
something and he immediately says shut up. Like
yeah,
that is not what you need to say to them is okay, listen, stop talking, let me speak. And don't yell all around the hallway, just say
yeah,
stop talking, let me speak. And then explain to them the situation and then say I need you to comply with my orders or I'm going to have to I'm going to have to shoot you. If you do not comply
yeah,
with my orders, there is no other choice I have.
yes,
It's just it's letting them know that you're not against them, you're not the bad guy, you're trying to help, but you
yeah.
need them to
There's
comply.
nothing, yeah,
The way they're talking to them, I would think that a criminal is talking to me. Personally, I would not want to be in this situation. I'd be like, okay, first off, man, you got to calm down. I know you got a lot of adrenaline in your system. You're holding a gun. You can shoot somebody any
yeah,
second. You need to relax. Now, of course, I'd probably get shot for saying that. Which, hey, you know what? It's all right. They got body cams. Even if I die, well, you know what? Screw it. I mean, as awful as that is, you know, but I'm not gonna sit there and have the possibility of me dying because a cop gives me horrible instructions and I'm shaky. This guy, this poor guy, he got killed over it. Now, I'll let you finish watching the
Yeah.
video. He said, "You listen, you obey." You know, an officer doesn't say that. They're unarmed, both of them. They're innocent.
So I'm one thing I'm kind of is like, what was the situation? What did they get called in for?
They
It was
got called
because
in.
there was.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Be, didn't you say because there was an armed assailant inside the hotel?
There was somebody who was reported to be armed inside of the hotel. There was no shots
So
fired.
not
Nothing. He was
exactly an assailant.
right. It was just somebody who was armed. Now, granted, these people could have very well been armed, but none of them were. Especially the guy who died, who did not have any firearms on him. Um, Now, granted, that's probably why the police were so uptight and so adrenaline filled, was because they thought that there was going to be an active shooter. Turns out the guy who was armed already left, I do believe, but I'm not sure. I'll let you finish watching.
I mean, one thing is he is changing up what he wants the kid or guy to do.
Right, and for me personally, first off, if there is an armed assailant inside of the hotel, he's already heard these three officers and he's gone.
Yeah.
He's
Or if
gone.
something, or if he is like, if these people are just civilians and he does hear that and he's in the hallway or something, he could be coming to start some kind of big ruckus that we
Ex-
don't need.
right. And where these officers are speaking relatively loud, it's not smart. The first thing
Yeah,
you should really be doing with these two people, getting them cuffed and the hell out of the building. It's patting them down, making sure they're not armed. They don't do that.
I mean,
They tell them to
were there?
crawl. I'm sorry, but when you're crawling,
Yeah,
the officer you'll see as you keep watching, the officer with the body cam doesn't have a good view of the guy's right shoulder. I mean, yeah, I do believe it was his right shoulder. So he thinks he's reaching for a pistol. But in all actuality, he loses his balance because, well, he's probably drunk, and because he was scared and he didn't want the officer to think he wouldn't comply, he said, "No, I'm not." Which, granted, this is all hearsay. We don't know. I don't know any of the details. I'd have to go look at them, but this is all based on the video, and this is what this officer does. Now, granted, this goes by improper instruction. I
yeah.
do blame the police for this. This could have gone. I'm just an innocent civilian. Me personally, I am a civilian. I could have gone about this better.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm now granted, even adrenaline filled. I know I could. Would I be shaky in my voice? Would I not be able to necessarily? Yeah, but I would still be able to give him instructions properly. I would be able to
yeah,
watch his body language to see if he's going to reach for a firearm, a knife, something. It doesn't take much. It takes 2 seconds.
yeah,
Having him crawl towards you was one of the most horrible mistakes they could have done here because it limits your line of sight with
yeah,
both of their hands. That's why I'm saying you want both hands presented at all times. When you're crawling, there's always one hand that goes back to the waist. That's time he could use to reach for a pistol and draw. You don't want to leave it open for that. That's why I'm so shocked that these officers let them crawl towards them. It's just, I'll let you finish watching the video so you can see what I'm talking about.
yeah. I'm almost at the part where he's crawling.
Yeah. I noticed he says shut up and listen a lot.
Yeah,
You can hear how he's yelling to him.
yeah.
If there's anybody in this hotel, they hear him.
I mean, like the guy is breaking down, crying.
Yeah,
Like,
now here's what
and they're
I'm here's what I'm saying. Now if you pause it real quick. He yells at him because his legs aren't crossed.
yeah,
If it's such a big deal that he's not complying, okay, well first okay, assume he's intoxicated. He's in a hotel. Assume he's intoxicated. Tell him, okay, I need you to stand up. I need you to stand up right now. Put your hands at your side. No, put your hands up in the air. Fingers spread apart, palms facing us. Slowly walk towards us. Immediately. That's
It's
Yeah.
like the hardest
proper
game of Simon Says ever.
proper
Yes.
instructions right there. Proper instructions right there. That's all it takes. It's
Yeah.
clear, it's exact, it's precise, it's not confusing, it's simple. And that's what this guy needs right now because he's in a very anxiety ridden and nervous breakdown state of mind. You can see the guy, like, he's literally begging. He's like, I promise I'm
Yeah.
innocent. I'm not doing anything. I haven't done anything. And he's just making it worse on this guy by yelling at him and screaming at him because he's not following the exact precise order of keeping his legs
Yeah.
crossed. This is so complicated. If he is intoxicated, the guy doesn't fucking realize. He's like, oh shit, oh god, I'm gonna get shot, I'm gonna die, oh
Yeah.
no. It's like if you fail a sobriety test, you're gonna die. Like, that's how this guy
Yeah.
feels right now. But it doesn't matter because the guy's life is gone. The officer killed him.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly just a really, uh, man.
He begs
Just,
for him not to shoot him.
yeah. It's like, honestly, there's no words to be said other than it. There's so many better. There are so many better ways to handle that situation at so many different times.
Now,
Uh,
granted, they didn't. I don't think they showed him shooting him there,
yeah, they didn't. They cut it out a little
which
bit before.
they did. They did stop it, which is fine. But you'll look if you do see the one where he does end up shooting. Oh
The
wait.
jurors, or if it's a bench trial, the
Oh wait, they
judge
have other video.
gives the police officer benefit to make the
I didn't know they had that.
My-
Well, anyways, I guess they have alternate video that you get to see um, of it off the shoulder. But the guy was innocent. Moral of the story: guy was innocent. He got killed because of a cop's reckless instructions.
Yeah,
This happened just in Arizona. And now I'm gonna just say this: the officer, the dust cover of his AR-15 was engraved "Get fucked."
are you kidding me?
Dead serious. Just like hold on, I'll try to find it. Hold on.
One thing that's kind of along the lines of like the stuff we're talking about now is, do you think that officers should have to have a mental illness test before they're allowed on the force?
Yes.
Yeah,
Um.
I have to agree also.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
Hold on. I'm trying to find the officer's AR-15. Trying to find it because I know it's on here. And I saw the image, and it was all over the media. Hold on. Yeah, there's the officer right there. I do believe it was only two officers that ended up discharging.
Uh,
No, it was only one.
oh,
Yeah, Daniel Shaver. Yeah, they said that he might. Oh, okay. So now there's new stuff that he might actually have been intoxicated.
the
Wait, the
officer
officer
or
was
the
No, no, Daniel
the
Shaver, the
guy
guy, the
shot.
guy who got shot.
uh,
Well, that makes it completely justifiable.
uh, I wouldn't say completely.
I was being sarcastic.
Right?
Okay.
It makes it
Like-
less. It makes it way less justifiable.
Like, I'm actually a little bit concerned that you slightly agreed with me.
Hmm?
Nothing.
Oh no, I think it says you're fucked, not get fucked. It says you're fucked.
I mean, still, that's not the best kind of.
Oh, never mind, never
Yeah.
mind, never mind. I know his. I'm trying to find the article where it says it. I know it's on here. Either way,
I know we haven't talked about this with Josh yet, but if you're wondering why I've been kind of quiet, it's just because I don't really have anything more to say about it since we've already talked about it in another podcast.
Right. I wanted to get Josh's opinion on this, considering he hasn't really known about it. Wait, I think this is it. Yep, there it is. Found it. Found the image. They blacked it out, but you can clearly see it says "you're fucked." Yep. Hold on, I'll save this to my. Yeah, and that's the same officer's rifle who was in the video. So he's the officer who shot. If it was me and I was the officer who was assigned as his help, I would have instantly told him put his hands and knees on the ground, and I would have handcuffed him, and I would have instantly, what's the word I'm thinking of? Oh yeah, I would have handcuffed him. I would have instantly detained him. Man, why did it take me so long? For that, because that's not necessarily it's murder, manslaughter, murder, one of the two. Well, probably murder because it's premeditated. There it is, right there. And I'm assuming he was detained and handcuffed because, well, there's a tag and a sticker. Not a ticker, but there's a tag on his firearm. So,
Yeah.
there's that.
So, we're gonna talk about gun control in New Zealand.
Seriously? They actually have. They still have guns in New Zealand?
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Just banned
Oh.
them.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought they had those.
I might be
But
thinking
yeah,
of Australia.
Australia banned their guns a while ago, but New Zealand just banned their guns.
Wow. When did they? When did they do that?
It was in response to the Christchurch shooting.
Oh my god.
Yep, standing on graves again to pass political agendas. And not only.
I tell you what, the more you ban this is my opinion. If the more you ban firearms, the more of these shootings you're gonna see. Places like New Zealand and Australia, where it's an island, great. You might be able to actually ban all your guns. You might actually be able to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are now lacking that citizen militia that you need. Australia's military is a friggin' joke. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, just about all
New
militaries
Zealand's
are jokes except for USA, Russia, and China.
right.
I mean,
What I'm trying
it's
to
a
get at,
joke to other
right?
countries, but not to the citizens. The
Right.
citizens don't have weapons in general.
Exactly. That's all
I
they
mean,
have is their military. So
yeah.
basically, what I'm
You
trying to
can't.
say is, when all else fails, the reason why no one invades America, the reason why no one invades Russia, is because their citizens are freaking armed.
There are more guns in America than actual citizens.
Right.
Like
there you go.
Like most people actually own more than one firearm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's not just the gun ban that I want to talk about in New Zealand. They're also impeding. They're also impairing free speech as a result of this mass shooting that took place. So I'm looking at this article here.
Go ahead and link it.
Or I actually can't see the whole thing.
Oh, and
I'll
if
have
you
to search
see
for it again.
on his AR-15, I'm just going to add this. On his AR-15, there is a full auto feature.
Yeah.
Officers, I don't think officers are allowed to have a full auto feature. Because that's a class 3. I think it's a class 3. But you do have to have a license. At least I'm pretty sure. To own a fully automatic firearm. Now, depending on state by state, so I could be wrong there, but I'm not sure.
No, it's since 1992. It's been you have to have a license in order to uh, build, construct, or own a fully automatic weapon of any sort.
Right, I do believe it's called an FFL, Federal Firearms License. Um, but
All right, I'm gonna have to type in the whole thing because I'm looking at this on my phone. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna use Google Chrome.
you could just go on the Discord app if you have it on your phone, and then just link it there.
I don't have the Discord app.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it's pretty screwed up. Oh,
But, well, were you aware of the shooting beforehand? Before I brought it up.
yeah, I was aware of
Yes.
that shooting. I was not aware of the ban in New Zealand though.
It has the. Oh wait. That's not working. I'll just go copy link address, paste. There we go.
There we go. All right, perfect.
Teenager, 18, accused of sharing a live stream of the Christchurch massacre and writing target acquired next to a photo of a mosque, faces 14 years behind bars as
That's
he's
it?
denied. He shared a video and a picture of the shooter, which was already on social media, not making any threats whatsoever, just using him to make a political statement.
Facebook earlier said it had taken down 1.5 million copies of footage of the shooting that had been live streamed by Tarrant at in the 24 hours after the carnage. He will reappear in court in April. If found guilty, he will face up to 14 years in jail. That's it. I mean, technically he. Well, no, because I guess that was like inciting like violence by saying target acquired. So, yeah, I guess 14 years is fair.
I mean, I'm not one who knows a lot about sentences, um, but for the number of lives that he took, I feel like 14 is not.
I don't. No, no, no. This. I don't think this guy actually killed anyone.
Oh, he
This
was.
guy just videoed it and said
Ah,
target acquired.
oh,
Which, if he was just videoing it, it'd be different. But he was. I do believe he was
yeah, he was. Yeah,
inciting violence,
oh,
like
that is inciting
encouraging the
violence.
shooting.
Yeah,
It was encouraging violence rather, not inciting it. But I
Well,
guess you could also
still,
say
I
it
mean,
is.
this is somebody who literally just entered the age of majority.
Doesn't
Well,
matter.
I just think it's kind of stiff of a punishment.
I
14
mean,
years. That's not actually. It's actually not that bad.
I
I tell you what.
what
When
he,
he comes out of jail, he's gonna learn his lesson.
yeah,
14
I have
years
to say that
behind
all,
bars.
yeah, although it's tough, it's the reality is that he did
In
something
today's
that was,
society, sometimes tough is a good thing.
yeah, because lessons still have to be learned in one way or another.
Right.
And if that's not coming in a slower, steady dosage, then I mean, this should put him right.
Hopefully.
Definitely not easy, but
I don't know, Josh. I mean, not Josh. Morgan, why do you think it's a little harsh?
Well, I mean, like the actually committing murder or manslaughter is like 10 years longer than what he did.
Serious?
Yeah, it's 25 years, I believe. Okay, it's 11 years longer than what he's being charged with. It's just, I don't think that somebody should be penalized unless they're actually um, making a direct threat. Like, it's really like there is a reasonable doubt that what he was doing was like obviously it was inciting violence, but I don't think that you should um, be penalized unless you're actually making a direct threat of violence. Like um, if he had said, "I'm going to shoot up a mosque too one day," that would be kind of different.
Right, right, right.
I mean, I think that now that you're saying it, I do think that he still should have to spend some time, maybe not over a decade,
10
but
years would have been a little more, I guess, fair, but 14, I mean, the guy's going to
that's yeah,
be, he's going to be 20, no, he's going to be 34, I want to say, think,
32.
32. When he gets out of jail, he'll have learned his lesson. And there is no way, I hate to say it,
I
50
mean,
people dead, and you're going to say target acquired? Really? That's all
I
you
mean,
gotta
it's
say while you're
certainly
videoing it?
not something I would have done, but
Right, exactly.
I mean,
So,
I
the question is
think,
why the hell did he say that?
I mean, I guess I can kind of guess why they punished him as much as they did, just because they probably want to make an example and show, like, look, it doesn't matter if you are the one doing this or if you feel like making a joke, you're gonna, oh, an ad started playing. You're gonna get punished. Um, yeah,
Right.
okay, well, you know what's a bit more comparable in the length of time to what he is facing? I believe in the United States, um, the typical sentencing for conspiracy is 15 years. So this is about like the same level um, as what he's done.
Mm,
You know, that what's being ruled by the court.
wow.
yeah,
I mean, it all goes by whoever's doing the sentencing
yeah.
and
I can't.
how their emotions are. I mean, I hate to say it, this kind of thing
Yeah,
is a lot of emotions, and even though it's court, there's still a lot of emotions in court. I do know this though. There has been a number of shootings and the amount of countries or areas that are banning guns or disassociating from guns is reckless. I mean, it's just I personally I do not believe it is smart in the slightest.
yeah. I mean,
Reason for that is because when you disarm a population, you are open to so much. I mean, what if you were
that's
to be invaded? Your citizens have no other means to defend themselves. There's no militias. Now, I hate to say it, my family could turn into a militia at any second. If let's say we were getting invaded by paratroopers from God knows what country, Russia or China or whatever, my family could become a militia within a few hours. Wouldn't take long, you know? There'd be, at a minimum, 10 of us ready to fight. No problem. How effective we were? That depends. um, It depends on, well, how much range time do we get? What kind of firearms do we have? Stuff like that. Um, but capability in terms of firearms, ammo, stuff like that. I mean, yeah. Do you want to have all of that be your priority? No. But, always good to just, over time, if you got some extra cash that you've been saving up, go buy yourself a firearm. You won't regret it. In my opinion, if I had some spare
yeah,
change lying around, I might go buy myself a firearm. Now, am I going to be sloppy with my choice? No, I'm going to definitely get my money's worth out of it, and I'm not going to buy something that I wouldn't consider safe. Something like an Uzi, which is already illegal. No, I'm not going to buy an Uzi. Um, I would sooner buy something like a Glock. It's a 9 mil. It's fine. Can you conceal carry it? Yeah.
yeah,
Would I do it? I know. I'd sooner just open carry it. Um, but it goes by who's doing it and who's being comfortable with it. Firearms are something that people don't know a whole lot of anymore. Sadly.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's
go
kind of,
ahead.
I mean, it's a good and bad thing because, I mean, as things are progressing, people don't need to know what a firearm is because things are safe.
Right.
Um, but then it's also kind of like, it's best not to like completely forget where you came from, how you
It's
got
best
there.
not to forget what made you safe in the first place.
Yeah, yeah,
What kept your grandfather alive while he was serving in World War II, or what your great grandfather would be probably. You know, um, you know what your great great grandfather used when he went hunting. Stuff like that. I mean, what your grandfather used when he went hunting, and what your dad used, and then what you used when you went hunting. It's just for me, hunting is a tradition. Now, granted, is that the reason why we have a Second Amendment? Hell no. Hell no. Anyone who believes that is very wrong. That is not why we have the Second Amendment. Second Amendment, if you read it carefully, it means it's talking about a militia, well regulated, meaning, oh, I'm going to regulate myself. I'm going to go to the range every day. I'm going to outfit myself. Now, granted, do you have to join a local militia? No. No. You don't have to. And just because you join a militia doesn't mean you get the right to own a firearm. The right, it says it right at the end. The right of the people, not the militia. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It does not say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms. No, the right of the people. So
yeah,
anybody who tries to say, "Oh, well, that's about a militia keeping," no,
yeah.
that is
It's not
very
about any particular group,
right.
just the
It's
people
about
as
a
a whole.
lone individual. The
Yeah,
people as in
yeah,
individuals, can
Also,
own
by
firearms.
definition, a right can't be given to you. Like to say that it's just a right that the militia has doesn't make sense
Right.
because a right is something that you're born with.
Exactly.
Like to say that you need to join the army or the navy or in order to gain the right to own a firearm, that doesn't make any sense because
Right.
that would mean that owning a firearm
Isn't a
is
right.
a privilege.
Right.
It's a and another thing, like there are all these politicians out there who are saying, "Well, uh, I don't hear anything about, um, you know, truck control or car control, and there are a whole bunch of people who are killed by cars every year more than guns." And then these smartasses always reply saying, "Well, you need to have a license and registration to own a car." Well, yeah, but owning a car is not a right.
It's a
Driving a
privilege.
car is not a right. It's a privilege that is granted by the state if you can prove that you are, competent enough in order to,
able to
you
handle
know,
that responsibility.
yes. A gun, on the other hand, the right to bear arms, that's a right. The state can't give you the right to bear arms. It's something
That's
that you always have.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's true. And one thing that I'm kind of thinking right now um, is that I mean, as times change and things change, um, stuff may get adapted to mean different things. But as it stands right now, I mean, the document says what it says, and we can't really. I mean,
Can't infringe on
I
it.
guess we can't. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
unless you want to go through just getting rid of the amendment and getting,
yeah.
and then look up
Something else.
the requirements of that. Look up the
Yeah,
requirements
that's
of changing or removing or adding an amendment.
yeah, that's
Takes
some
a lot.
hefty stuff.
I mean, I'd look it
Yeah,
up
it
right
needs to
now,
be
but
like
I'm too
two
lazy.
thirds majority in. Is it just the House, or is it both the House and the Senate have
It's
to
House
House
and
and
two thirds
Senate.
House
majority?
and Senate, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
See, here's
that's
the way
both.
how I think it should be. Now, I mean, of course, changing the Constitution is a huge deal. It takes a lot, but the way how I think our bicameral, bichamberal system should work is the House of Representatives. They should be the chamber to pass a law. The Senate should be the chamber to stop a bill from being passed. So what it would be like is in the House, if a bill gets 2/3 in favor of passing, then it goes to the Senate, and then the Senate, they should vote to repeal the bill, and if they get a 1/3 majority, then uh, the bill is stopped, and it just goes back to a town petition or whatever.
Hmm.
That's how I think it should work.
So, like, rather than having two, like, just them presenting the bill,
Rather than
getting
having
moved
two chambers
to,
pass a bill, it should be one chamber tries to pass the bill, the other chamber tries to repeal the bill.
that's, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it is. It's like it goes in one, uh, they'll do their stuff with it and change it a little. They'll send it to the other has to give approval, and then it goes back. And then once it's done with that approval, it goes up to the president.
Right.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
No, you're right. I was just getting into the semantics of it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean,
But one thing about the Senate, this is hilarious. There are a lot of liberals out there. Like, no offense, Josh, but there's a lot of your kind out there.
your kind.
Well, no, probably way further,
Yeah,
way more liberal than you.
it's
They want to
northern.
abolish the Senate.
Yes.
Why?
They're-
Because
uh,
Republicans control the Senate, but they're
Yeah.
saying, well, the Senate is anti-democratic because the Senate, there's only 2 senators for every state, so it doesn't represent the states enough. Well, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
I mean, there are definitely people on both sides that I find particularly not necessarily uneducated, but irresponsible with their thinking, or at least not thinking through both the now and the future. Because I mean, we have the stuff that we have for a reason, and for a very good reason. Um, it's helped us make a very, very good, fair, and generally nice country.
Hmm.
But when they talk about like removing stuff, or like, oh no, we should change this to like cut this part out of like all the government, or the government's bad, or the government's amazing. It's like there's more gray area. There's more in between.
Right.
I really, to be honest, I don't even agree with the bill that made it so that the senators get elected by popular vote.
Mm.
But that's just me.
Tell you what, if the president was elected by popular vote, we wouldn't have Donald Trump.
Yeah,
That is true.
That's true.
We wouldn't. We would have Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
Well,
honest.
to be honest, Clinton kind of corrupt Clinton. She kind of stole it all from Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bernie
And
was.
that Bernie. I have to be honest. Bernie was he was a cool character. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
Some of the things that he would kind of advocated for definitely seemed a
My
bit
worry was his
unrealistic.
stance on guns.
What was his stance on guns?
Yeah, I do believe he was anti-gun. Same with Hillary.
Yeah.
See, why would a Bolshevik like him be opposed to guns? I mean, how are you going to overthrow the bourgeois without guns?
He's a Bolshevik.
No, he's a democratic socialist.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
A democratic socialist.
But socialism, by its definition, is democratic. So, like,
Yeah.
just saying you're a democratic socialist, all it really is a dog whistle trying
That's
to
really all it is.
stop people from calling you, like,
Another Mussolini
Stalin.
fascist or something.
or a Mussolini
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
Hitler, National Socialist.
yeah.
Even though
The
Hitler
National
wasn't a,
Socialist.
let me just say this: Hitler was not a socialist. Nazis were
Thank
not
you.
socialists.
That's true.
Thank you.
I'm
That
just
was
gonna say that right there. So that way, if
yeah,
anyone
that
wants
was
to know,
something else
look it up.
entirely.
He was not a socialist. What he did was not socialism.
Yeah,
It was a slap-on sticker. That's
yeah.
all it
It was just
was.
to
It
appeal
followed.
to like all the working class people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. And I mean, it followed some of the principles, but that's like that doesn't.
It
You
was
have to
more in
follow the
line with
principles of
syndicalism than socialism.
Yep.
yeah,
Like everything's controlled, like the production is controlled by the trade unions, the state
yeah,
determines how much of everything is produced.
Yep.
That's the way it was like,
More. Well, the thing
which
about
I'm
it.
not entirely opposed to be honest. I mean, much as I like free enterprise, free market capitalism, um, I think that there are some
Basic
good
human
aspects.
needs. Basic human needs shouldn't be. In my opinion, basic human needs should not be run entirely by the government. Do I believe
No.
the government should have a say? Minimal, but yeah, minimal.
See, in Europe, Europe is basically the European Union, more specifically. They're basically a welfare state now. And this is one thing that I
yeah,
was covering a lot in the first chapter of my book. Um, like, actually, I could bring that up. Just look at some of the things that Europe's been doing that it just like completely ruined it because of their welfare state. Blah, blah, blah. Actually, I'm just gonna. The word is taking forever to start up, so you can interject now.
Oh, I don't got
um,
much to say.
actually, I may have to hop off. I
Yeah,
have
I was about to say I
to
probably
get some food and
did.
other things.
Did we want to just end it right here and then we can pick up some other time? I was
Well, I
figuring.
just want to make a final point
Okay,
about the welfare state.
All right.
sure. Yeah, go ahead
Yeah.
and go right for it.
Okay, so to begin with, the U.S.'s GDP is $3 trillion greater than the EU, that of the EU, as of 2019. Um, Now, this is despite the fact that the EU has 185 million more people than the US. And if you're going to run a welfare state, that's not a good thing.
Hmm.
Um, 21.3% of Americans receive any sort of financial assistance from the government, be that like student loans or, well, no, like, I'm talking about like um, food, food stamps, housing. Actually, does the government provide housing still? I don't know.
I mean, there is government assistance for housing and stuff,
Right.
Yeah,
um, but not like fully government sanctioned housing.
yeah, I didn't think
It's just
so. I'm pretty sure
highly
that's just
reduced.
like a New Deal sort of thing. Um,
Yeah,
health, healthcare, um, stuff like that. Um, but just about everybody in Europe gets assistance from the government,
Hmm.
and I mean that's pretty obvious considering that they have universal college, universal health care, etc.
Right. It's all government run.
Um, but given how the U.S. economy is so good and how because we don't have a welfare state, that's basically why our military is so huge because everything that would be going to all this free stuff
It's
it goes
going to the
to
government.
paying like
I mean the
Saudi
military.
Arabia's military budget,
Right.
um, fighting in Iraq and Syria and um, all those countries in West Asia.
yeah.
Um,
So basically, just like shifting control of our own country to maybe having more say in other ones.
Mm.
hmm And that's
Uh,
also why our oil is so cheap because
Right.
Saudi Arabia Saudi Arabia reduces the price of oil
God.
when we go out and protect their country and finance their military.
I think I got the
What?
topic for our next podcast.
Yeah.
Conspiracies. We're just gonna talk
Oh,
about as
yeah.
many conspiracies as we can.
That's gonna be
We
fun.
we might get a conspiracy denier, I do believe. We'll bring Logan on. Hopefully Logan can shed some light on what conspiracies we can see as not true and the conspiracies we can see as are true. This has been Brandon, Josh, and Morgan with the ForthRight. Have a nice night.